Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I'm going to do the Reread Book Tag and the Deja Vu Book Tag. And this is from a video that I saw at Bouquins Books done by Elizabeth. I've also seen a version of this, or versions of this tag video done by Elizabeth Choi over at her channel. Now, I have been thinking a lot about rereading books recently. I have been preparing a list of the 10 best books that I have read in 2021. And oddly enough, when I rank them, 8 out of 10 are books that I have reread. And I want to explore that further about why do I like rereading books more than books that I've just discovered recently, are new to me reads. So that got me started, and so let me do this tag. The Reread Book Tag has 9 prompts. It will end with the Deja Vu book tag, and I believe this is sort of an abbreviated version of the Deja Vu tag done by Bouquins Books, and I'm just going to go with that. Prompt number 1. Let's assume you do reread if you're doing this tag. So where do you sit on the rereading scale from almost never to all the time? That's sort of hard to say. I have reread more than 20 books this year. So out of about 100 or so. So a little under 20%. I think that's more than most people, but I'm not sure. And I want to increase that. In 2022, I want to bump that up to over 25%, I think. I think that's going to be a challenge I'm going to be giving myself. Prompt number 2, has that changed over your reading life? I think I have always reread some. I remember when I was younger, there were some fantasy novels that I liked to read a lot growing up. And I've always occasionally picked up a book to reread. But I think that pace has been increasing as I get older. Part of that may just be that I've read so many books over my lifetime that I just want to revisit the ones that I really like a lot. Prompt number 3. When do you reread? Maybe immediately after finishing a book, or not until years later, or when the mood strikes? Generally speaking, it is years later. There are a few exceptions. There was a novel that I read for a book group on my own about 10 years ago. It was by Julian Barnes. And the next year, it was selected for a book group. So I read it a year later. Also earlier this year, one of my favorite reads was a book called J.R. by William Gaddis. And I am again reading that again in January. So that's very close on the heels of the last time I read it, less than a year. And that's really quite rare. It's usually 5 to 10 years later that I reread a book. Prompt number 4. Why do you reread books? Because I'm interested in revisiting them. It's like going to a museum and looking at a painting that you love, that you've seen before. You just want to revisit it and see if there's something new. And in most cases, yes, there is something new every time you pick up a book. Because I am not the same person I was 1 year ago. I am not the same person I was 10 years ago. So when I reread a book, I am a different person. The book itself, of course, has not changed, but I will interpret it in new ways. And I think that's important to discover how I personally have changed since reading for the first time. Prompt number 6. Who or what do you reread? More specifically, which authors or genres or individual books? I would say literary fiction gets the most rereads along with poetry. Nonfiction, there is some nonfiction books that I reread. There is a very good biography about Theodore Roosevelt called The River of Doubt by Candace Millard. And that is a nonfiction book that I have read 3 times. I have reread some of the dialogues of Plato more than once, but it's usually fiction. Some of the big ones this year would have been, again, A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. And that is just a book that I think I just have to reread again because it's so funny to revisit Ignatius. He is so outrageous and so awful and so wonderful at the same time. It's just like you want to peek into his life again. And again, how do I reinterpret Ignatius over the years? I think I'm getting a pretty good handle on him about now. And I am comfortable calling him a character that you can hate and a character that you can love all at the same time. And I'm not sure I would have said that the first time I read that book. Prompt number 7. Is there a book that you found better when you reread it? Yes. I guess one of the biggest ones was a book that I read when I was in college. It was As the Caged Bird Sings, by Maya Angelou. And I read that when I was a senior or as a junior. And I really did not like that book at all when I read it when I was that young. I just thought it was terrible. Fast forward 20 years when I'm in a book group and it's selected for a book group. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And I almost skipped that book group meeting because I didn't want to reread the book. But I decided, yes, I am going to try to reread it. And I liked it a lot more. At one time, I probably would have rated that as one of the worst books that I've ever read in my life. When I reread it, I said, this is okay. Maybe even a little better than okay. So that's maturity coming over the young man who originally read that book. Number 8, and one that was worse. I am currently rereading the Iliad, and it is just not jiving with me on this reread. I just watched a video by Shelley Swearingen, who said around book 14 or 15 that she really hit her sweet spot reading this book, and it all gelled together. I am also at book 15, but that sweet spot has not hit me yet. I'm just going like, okay, lots of Greek soldiers killing other Greek soldiers, lots of gods intervening, and I'm just not getting it. I like the story of Achilles. There is a great speech that he gives around book 9, and I really dig that. There is a scene around book 12 where Hera is seducing Zeus, so he's not paying attention to what's going on in the war. And Zeus gives a whole litany of his previous lovers saying how much better Hera is than his other lovers. And I'm going like, what woman would like that? But no, the book is just not gelling with me. But I am going to continue to read it because I know there is something there, and it's just me being distracted and not finding it in that book. Prompt number 9. Which book have you read the most times? I'm going to say Albert Camus' The Stranger. I read that twice in college for a college class. That was in the original Stuart Gilbert translation. When the Matthew Ward translation came out in the 90s, I immediately bought it and read that translation. And I read that translation twice. Then I listened to the audiobook. and then I read the graphic novel adaptation, and then I read the ebook. So that is probably the book I've read the most. Second would probably be either The Time Machine by H.G. Wells or a book that I've already mentioned, A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. And that ends the book reread tag, and going on from the Deja Vu tag. Pick a book from your younger years that you think would be interesting to reread. I am going to say the Chronicles of Elric of Melniboné by Michael Moorcock. Those were my favorite fantasy books when I was in high school. I did try to reread them a little over 10 years ago and just couldn't get into them again. Whatever magic, not magic, there's a magic system in the book, so whatever magic that made me fall in love with those stories when I was in high school just wasn't there anymore. So I am going to revisit them in 2022. New editions of those books are coming out, and I will pick them up and I will give them a shot and see what I think of them when I am 57 as opposed to 17. That could be interesting. Tell us a series or book that is so big or complex that you need to reread it to better understand it. There are a few of those. Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. I listened to the audiobook. I gathered or understood a lot of what's going on, but all those details and all those minutiae that you can deep dive into, as in someone said, in almost every sentence, just was not there in that audiobook alone. So what I want to do one day is reread Gravity's Rainbow while I'm listening to the audiobook. I find that combination really helps solidify the text in my mind. A second one of that is Ulysses by James Joyce. Again, I've listened to the audiobook and the issues are the same that I had with Gravity's Rainbow. You can understand the surface level story, but all those details are missed in the audiobook alone. So I want to reread that while listening to the audiobook. Also, the Robert Caro's books, biographies on Lyndon Baines Johnson. There are 4 of them. There should be a 5th coming out. I hope he lives to write it or finish it, because when he does, I'm going to pick up that series from the beginning and start all over to really grasp the life of LBJ, because those are just magnificent biographies. And that is the book reread and Deja Vu tag. I am not going to tag anyone specifically for this because I don't know who likes to reread. If you like to reread books, go ahead and do this tag. I'd be interested to hear what you say. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.